Welcome to Radical Personal Finance, a show dedicated to providing you with the knowledge, skills, insight, and encouragement you need to live a rich and meaningful life now, while building a plan for financial freedom in 10 years or less. My name is Joshua Sheets, and today on the podcast, I want to extend from 10 years to 110 years. And instead of talking about financial freedom, I want to talk about crazy amounts of wealth. And one simple and yet engaging idea that a few people who are hearing my voice are likely to do. Most people will ignore it, but a few people are likely to do. This past week, I presented a class to RPF Academy. This whole year, I've been week by week teaching through all the lessons of RPF Academy, which is a comprehensive guide to everything you need to know about financial planning, put into practice of how to accomplish what I talk about, of building wealth and achieving financial freedom. And it is both inspirational and technical. And we're at a point in the course in which I am going through investment planning. And one component of investment planning involves talking about the wrappers that you can wrap around investments that give certain benefits. So wrappers here would include things like retirement accounts, education accounts, those types of things. These are wrappers that you can put around your investments that keep them safe from taxes and protect them from creditors. Those are the details. So this last week, I was talking about individual retirement accounts, IRAs, and specifically talking about Roth IRAs, among other things. Now, the Roth IRA in the United States is an extremely unique account. It is the greatest account the greatest set of benefits that's really ever been set up that I know of. It's truly astonishing when you start to dig into the details of how flexible it is, how useful it is. It's just really great. I tell everyone that basically a Roth IRA should be the first account that you ever use. I mean, literally, if you earn your first paycheck as a child, you can and should probably put at least some of it into a Roth IRA. And the reason has to do with how flexible it is. The fact that you can always take out your contributions without penalty and without tax is astonishing. Now, of course, if you take out earnings on the account, then that's where we need either an exception or we may pay tax or we may pay penalties. But you know, a young person who earns $1,000 can put $1,000 in a Roth IRA, leave it there for 6 months, then turn around 6 months later and pull out $1,000 and spend it. But meanwhile, having been in that account, it is sitting there. It may be growing if it's well invested, and it's protected from the claims of creditors in many states. It's just a neat thing. And yet, over time, the tax efficiency that you can have with a Roth IRA is truly astonishing. And when you think about what's possible in the long term, it's really astonishing. Now, the last time that I thought seriously about Roth IRAs was about 3 or 4 years ago when the news had come out about Peter Teals' alleged $5 billion Roth IRA. And I did a video for the Nomad Capitalist YouTube channel on that Roth IRA, where I walked through how Peter Thiel could get the money tax-free out of his Roth IRA. And it was pretty astonishing. I walked through how he built this $5 billion Roth IRA and how he could get the money out. Pretty amazing. But over the last... But that kind of deal structure, the way that he built that $5 billion Roth IRA, is not open to a lot of people. And so this last weekend, I was going through my notes, and I was trying to create a scenario that would show the power of the Roth IRA. And here is the scenario that I have created. I want you to understand, though, where the scenario comes from before I tell you the details. In investment planning, we have a few different factors that we can manipulate. I think of these as the factors that are related to the numbers that you put in on a financial calculator. So if you're going to calculate a future value in a financial calculator, the numbers that you put in are, first of all, your starting point, your present value, how much of an investment sum do you have to begin with today. Then you put in the number of periods that the money can grow, Then you put in the interest, the rate of return that the money can get. Then you put in your payments, how much money is going to be going into the account or how much money is going to be coming out of the account. And with those factors, you are able to calculate your long-term rate of return and your future value. That's how you do it on a financial calculator. So what a lot of people get sucked into is they fixate quite rigidly on the rate of return. And their only focus is to try to say, well, how can I invest in something that's going to make me lots of money? So I should take all of my money out of stocks and I should put it all in Bitcoin because that's what's going to make me a lot of money, or whatever the next big thing happens to be. Well, the rate of return is very important, but it's not the only factor. The other factors are also important. And so if you could have a large starting value, a big present value, that would be wonderful. If your granddaddy had left you a lot of money and all of a sudden you can just invest millions of dollars, well, you don't need to worry too much about the rate of return because you're starting with millions of dollars. If you don't belong to the Lucky Sperm Club, well, then let's go on and talk about how much money you can put in, the payment. And so that's where earning a lot of money, spending a little bit of money, being able to save and invest more in terms of payments, that makes a big, big difference over the long term. But then we have the number of payments, meaning how long can we invest our money? And if you look at big fortunes, what is really astonishing is that this factor is enormously influential in terms of how big a fortune can get. If you start investing very early, if your parents even invested for you before you came along, you have so much time for compound interest to take over that the wealth can grow very big, very fast. Now, most of us didn't start as early as we wish we had. So what about at the other end? Well, if you invest longer than other people do, then the money can continue to compound very, very quickly. And this is an idea that over the last 5 years or so has really grown in importance to me. Now, that has a lot to do with how I've changed over the years about my views towards retirement. When I was younger, I was interested in the traditional concept of retirement, and then I became really engaged with the concept of early retirement. Then I built a lifestyle that I don't really need or want to retire from, and that changed my perspective. And while I won't know until I'm actually financially independent, able to choose to walk away from work, whether or not I actually believe this way, I kind of just think, why would I want to retire and stop working and stop being productive, given all the important things that need to be done in the world? Why would I want to stop working and being productive just because I can? And so more or less, I've basically walked away from the idea of ever retiring, and I keep the idea, well, let's build financial independence. It'll be nice when I get there, but let's build financial independence while planning never to retire. If you do that, it's kind of magical what can happen to the money. And it took me years to figure this out working with individual clients. You can have somebody who is not on track for retirement, and all you have to do is just say, well, let's push retirement out 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. And all of a sudden, boom, they're well on track if we just add more time. Now, why add more time instead of adding more return? It's because return is the hardest thing to figure out how to get in the marketplace. We can get return from some basic things like sitting in our investments instead of buying and selling, like buying and holding and kind of gutting through times. But to go out and find alpha in the marketplace is very difficult. And I don't know how to do it. And a lot of people who think they know how to do it can't do it, and only a few people can do it. So it's very frustrating when everyone's looking for excess return to be a financial advisor and say, well, I don't know how to get excess return for you. And if you can find it, cool, go for it. But I don't know how to get it. But what I do know is that you don't have to have excess return to hit some of your goals. All we have to do is manipulate some of the other factors. And over the years, this is what has made me feel like I can actually bring value to people, is that I can substitute what I call financial planning, which you could also just call life planning. And if I can't figure out how to get outsized returns in the marketplace, I can still help somebody to reach his goals by simply controlling the other factors. And those other factors involve things like staying in the market longer, working some more. So over the years, I've done some of these calculations. And as I was preparing for Radical Family Camp last spring, the theme of the camp was about dynasty. And one of the calculations I did was, well, what if you just basically took, as an older person, what if you just simply deferred retirement by about 10 years? And during that 10 years, you worked and invested for your financial dynasty. It's a magical, powerful concept, and it results in millions of dollars for most people, at least most people here in this audience, being freed up for some really cool opportunities. Now, of course, you want to build a lifestyle that you don't need to retire from. If you're just doing a job that's kind of destroying your body and you're going to be dead in the end of 10 years, well, of course, you're better off retiring. But most of us don't live in that world anymore. So none of these concepts are really relevant for us the way they were. So I just look at it and say, what if you spent the next 10 years and instead of retiring, you just focused on saving and investing as much as you can for future generations? And the numbers are astonishing. But then this last week, I redid those numbers for a Roth IRA, and I could not believe what I calculated. Let me tell you about it, okay? Now, one of the important rules you need to know for a Roth IRA is that the only people who can contribute to a Roth IRA are those with earned income. So you can't open a Roth IRA for a child or young person until he or she is able to generate earned income. But as soon as you can generate earned income for a child, you can immediately open a Roth IRA. And what most intelligent parents will do is they will basically match their child's income. So, Johnny earns $3,000 this year from his Saturday job. And so mom and dad say, here, Johnny, congratulations, you earned $3,000. We're going to file a tax return for you, and we're going to report that $3,000 to the IRS. You now have $3,000 of earned income. So let's go ahead and make a $3,000 contribution to your Roth IRA. And then what we will do is we will give you $3,000, which you can go and take and spend on whatever you were going to spend your $3,000 on. So the parents do a matching contribution into the child's Roth IRA. This allows all of the child's earned income to go into the Roth IRA. Now, of course, dollars are fungible, so which dollars are going where doesn't really matter. For tax purposes, though, what is actually happening is that the parents are making a $3,000 gift to Johnny. He can spend his money as he likes because it's a gift, no problem there, no taxes on a gift. And then he puts all of his earnings into his Roth IRA. So you have to generate earned income. You can't really do that at 2, but at 10 or at 12, at 15, it's certainly possible. So what if somebody did this? Well, the money grows pretty effectively. If you put aside a maximum Roth IRA contribution, which is currently about $7,000, and those numbers of a maximum contribution tend to increase over time, more or less with the rate of inflation, then you would have quite a lot of money. If you started early, and if you max that contribution out. Now, what I did is started with $7,000. I increased that by 2% per year. 3% per year. So I increased it at 3% per year. Then, because you start so early, by the time you get to retirement age, you have a lot of money. If the investments grow at 7%, at age 65, you'd have about $6.8 million. And I like to use that 7% number as basically just a broad way of making a modest inflation adjustment. It's not a true inflation adjusted return, but if we figure the market delivers maybe 10%, which it has delivered for a long time. And if we lose about 3% to inflation, then 7% is kind of a rough way that's super easy to calculate numbers on. So 7%, we wind up with $6.8 million. If we run it at 10%, making more, we wind up with $20 million in the account, which is pretty remarkable. So one little account, $7,000 a year, increasing those contributions at 3% per year. At age 65, our intelligent young man or woman would be pretty well squared away for a retirement account with about $7 million of more or less inflation-adjusted returns available for retirement with one little Roth IRA. That's the power of starting early. But it gets better. What if you implement that strategy with your children? And what if you also implement a strategy of going on for longer? So one of the cool things about the IRAs now is, in the wake of the tax law changes a couple of years ago with the CARES Act and everything, the Secure Act, now, as long as you have earned income, you can contribute to both a traditional IRA and a Roth IRA. So every year that you have earned income, you can keep on contributing to a Roth IRA. So what if our enterprising young man or woman who started contributing to his or her Roth IRA at 10 continues and doesn't just quit and get put out to pasture at 65, but continues to provide meaningful value to society and continues to earn income as a result of that meaningful value? Well, contributions can continue. And what if he does this until he's 80 years old? Keeps on going until he's 80, and maybe at that point in time, instead of 65, after all, 80 is the new 65, does this until 80, and then stops making contributions. Of course, by this time in a portfolio growth, it's not the contributions that matter. You're so far into the compounding cycle, it's all about rate of return that matters. But let's just have him keep on going. Well, how much does he have at the age of 80? Depends on what interest rate. If we use a 7% rate, at age 80 now, we're up to $30 million. So we've grown from $7 million to $30 million if we use 7%. If we use 10% at age 80 now, we are up to $85 million. So we've gone from $20 million to $85 million. Just think about that. If you start early, if you just extend out from 65 to 80, 15 years, and instead of draining your accounts down, the money continues to grow, we're up to $85 million. Now, let's assume then that Johnny continues to live and continues to not need that money. After all, a Roth IRA is usually one of the last buckets that you want to touch. It's not that you can't touch it. It's not that it's not smart. It can be great to pull out some tax-free money from it, but the fact that it is tax-free is pretty cool. So for somebody who has abundant wealth in other pockets, under current tax law, the Roth IRA is unique in that it doesn't have required minimum distributions. So a traditional account, traditional 401k, traditional IRA will have required minimum distributions, everything except a Roth account has required minimum distributions. So we want to continue to let that money sit. And although we're still calling this guy Johnny, although Johnny he could take money, he doesn't. And let's assume that Johnny is long-lived. He lives until age 100, and he never spends a dime out of that account. So review the numbers with me. He started contributing. He put in $7,000. He grew his contributions each year at 3% as the maximum amount increased. And he makes contributions for a total of 70 years, from the age of 10 to the age of 80. That would be total contributions of just over $1 million, $1,051,000, just over $1 million. At the age of 80, at 7% growth, his account was worth $30 million. At the age of 100, when he dies, his account is worth $75 million. $75 million tax-free dollars. Beneficiary of the account, it's a Roth account, receives the money tax-free. Johnny put in $1 million. beneficiary gets over $75 million tax-free. That's $74 million, which, under current law, is never taxed. What if he got 10%? And we're talking not in what I'm calling real dollars, again, kind of a ham-fisted adjustment to using 7% instead of 10%. What if he gets 10%? Well, at age 100, when he dies, there would be $327 million in the account, completely tax-free. Now, the Roth account, unfortunately, the rules are not as good as they used to be, but the Roth account can continue to accumulate money tax-free, sheltered inside the Roth for 10 more years. And then it has to be fully withdrawn by the beneficiary. The beneficiary can take it out at any point, but if we want to keep it in the Roth account, we have a maximum of 10 more years of tax-free compounding inside the Roth account before it has to come out. That 10 years is pretty magical. This would represent 100 years since the date of the first contribution. Want to guess how much money it would be? At 7%, remember Johnny put in $1,051,000 from age 10 to age 80. At 7%, this Roth IRA, 10 years after Johnny's death at age 100, this Roth IRA would have $151,615,767.48. $150 million tax-free under current rules. What if it were 10%? Well, you're not going to believe the number. At 10%, it would be $1,500,000,000. $1.5 billion available for the beneficiary. Just imagine $1.5 billion tax-free gets slid over into a family dynasty trust of some kind. Just imagine. This approach did not and does not require you to come from the Rothschild family or the DuPont family or the whatever the greatest, the Musk family. All this requires is for you to start off your 10-year-old with Roth IRA contributions and for you to leave the money alone. And yet, your family, your dynasty can be financially changed forever. I hear the naysayers coming loud and clear through my headphones. You're quick to say, yeah, Joshua, those are current rules, and after all, these Roth accounts have not been around that long, and those rules aren't gonna stay the same. I would say, certainly you are correct. The idea that the IRA rules that are in force in the year 2025 are the same rules that are going to be in force in the year 2125 seems to me a joke. You say, well, Joshua, that depends upon, the market producing 7% or 10% nominal. And just because the market has done that basically over the last 100 years doesn't mean that the next 100 years is going to look the same. And I would say you are absolutely correct. It may not. But the point stands that while you can't control the rules on the particular account that you do or don't use, and while you can't control what the market returns, none of those things are controllable. The reality is that ordinary people who engage in extraordinary discipline for an extraordinary, how's that for a redundant phrase, right? For an extraordinary amount of time, can achieve something that is pretty astonishing. And one of the things that is broken about most of our models is that most of our models of financial planning are purely based upon what I label as selfish consumption. I'm not here trying to make a moral statement. I'm not saying it's wrong to save your money and invest it and use it for yourself. Of course, it's not wrong. It's your money. You can do what you like. And it's not selfish for you to consume your own money that you've saved for many years. What I'm saying is that we don't have a lot of example, and a lot of people are thinking about this kind of scenario. And of course, how much more incredible would it be if you were extraordinarily successful and you figured out how to save tens of millions of dollars and sell businesses for tens of millions of dollars yourself? How much better would it be if you figured out how to beat the market hollow and double the market return for the next century? How much better would it be? Like, there's so many other ways that could be better. But what happens is that, at least for me, I've spent a lot of time thinking about those things, and all that is out of reach. And yet, what is within reach is one humble little Roth IRA. Could be the tool that changes your dynasty forever. And while this may not be within reach of the common man, I think this kind of thing is within reach of you and me with a bit of focus. The formula for financial freedom and financial productivity is relatively simple and straightforward. And in the countries that you and I live in, this is doable. I think it's doable for most people to double their income over the next 5 or 10 years. I think it's probably doable for most people to double their income again over the next 5 to 10 years. May take 20 years, but I think it's doable. Let's say that you start off at 20 years old earning $25,000. Let's say that it takes you 5 to 10 years. Well, let's just start with 5. Do you think that it's reasonable for you to go from $25,000 to $50,000 increase over 5 years? Anybody can do that. Anybody can do that. We haven't even gotten to the median wage. And yet anybody who's working at it, building skills, developing tenure, developing skills in a job where you're now a craftsman instead of an apprentice, or you're a journeyman instead of an apprentice, or you're moving up, you can build those skills. Median wage in the United States, I think, is 50-something thousand, 54,000 is what's in my head. I'm not sure if that's right. Median household income in the United States is 80-something thousand. So I think in 5 to 10 years, you can go from wherever you start to the median wage, 50-something. Now, let's say that you double again. I think most people can double again to 50 to 100. And I think most people, with practice and with time, could double again to around $200,000. Now, some people can double and triple again and again and again. Some people, but generally, those are people who have above average intelligence, above average work ethic, above average connections. And I don't think that's available to all people. I don't think all people can go and earn, $500,000 a year. But I think most people could get to $150,000 to $200,000 a year over the course of 15 or 20 years of focused effort with their career. Now, I want to give you a simple mental model. You need a house to live in, so you're going to get a house and move into it and pay it off. I want you to also set 2 goals. I want you to set a goal of maxing out your Roth IRA every year, and I want you to set a goal of maxing out your 401k or whatever version of that is offered to you. Here's what's magical about these accounts. Basically, if you can just max out a retirement account at just about any point in your life, you can make it for your own retirement. So what I'm trying to draw here is I'm trying to say, let's say that you can earn $150,000 a year. But let's say that you set up a lifestyle where you consume $100,000 a year. which should be doable because it is more than the median wage. May not be doable in all markets. If you're living in an expensive market, may not be doable. It may not be doable for all people. If you have 16 children, it may not be doable for you. But it just go with me and give me a little bit of leeway on the numbers, right? So you earn 150 and you spend 100, and then you tuck that 50 aside, and you tuck aside a good portion of it into the 401k. And the 401k is for you, for your retirement when you need it. And then you tuck more of a portion aside into Roth IRA for you, and then try to help your children do Roth IRAs. And look at the Roth IRAs as something for the next generation. So I don't want to go into all the other versions of this that I calculated. It's kind of fun to think about what can happen if you do this. But wouldn't it be cool? We have this saying. I'm not sure who to attribute the proverb to. We have this proverb that a society is great when men plant trees under whose shade they will never sit. Right? A great society is populated by men who plant trees under whose shade they will never sit. We hear that proverb and then we just let it fly by because we say, well, I'm not going to plant a tree because I'm going to move from this house 5 years from now. But one version of planting trees might be doing things like I'm describing. If at all possible, scrimp around, save around, try to put some money aside in an account that is not earmarked for you, that is not earmarked for your children, that may not even be earmarked for your grandchildren, but may be earmarked for your great-grandchildren. And if not you, try to get your children to do that. Meaning, try to get your children to think about their grandchildren, their great-grandchildren. Let's be those people who get serious about this idea of planting trees all through our neighborhoods under whose shade we will never sit. Let's do it with the actual trees. Wouldn't that be cool? Let's do it with the actual trees. Let's do it with the property, and let's do it with the money. Let's do it with the legacy. Let's do it with the values. Let's do it with the family. But let's also do it with the money. Funding your children's Roth IRAs each year, matching their money into that, teaching them to do that, starting early and continuing late, could very realistically result in your great-grandchildren having a financial bulwark behind them that is incredible to think about. And if you can match that finance with the character, the legacy, all those other soft things, the culture, wouldn't that be exciting? Hope you like my idea. Kind of a fun playing around with math, but it's inspiring to me. I hope it's inspiring to you. Thank you for being here. Be back with you very soon.